Today I thought I would do a video all about careers. I was very close to doing like a wardrobe new in, but I thought that can wait till next week. I've seen a lot of conversation that talk about careers, jobs, life paths, things like that, and I thought it'd be really interesting to do a video myself. I saw Alex from The Frugality did a post, my friend Charlotte did a post, which was really great and really interesting, and it's kind of been a talk, and I did a poll on my Instagram saying whether you'd like to see a blog post or a video, and I think it was a pretty split balance. So I've done a blog post, which I'm going to link below, which talks all about careers, but I thought I would do a video as well, mainly because I think sometimes if you're more of a listener and would rather hear me talk about it, then that might be more interesting. It kind of sounds a bit like a narcissistic video because it's like, hey, this is how I got to here, and like as if people would be really interested. But when I was studying, there really wasn't any resources and I felt quite lost, especially because I wanted to go into fashion. It felt quite broad. So I think I could have really done with seeing more people talk about it, and obviously there wasn't YouTube when I was at school, so there weren't these resources anyway, but I thought it'd be quite interesting to do a video just in case you need a bit of inspiration. Let's crack on. Also, advance apologies, my fringe does need a trim. It's a little bit long, I feel like I'm a bit like trying to see through it, but bear with me with this. It's the elephant in the room, but we've addressed it now, so let's get cracking. First things first, I thought I'd start off way at the beginning, which is when I was at school, and I'm going to start around sixth form because from that point, I think around from the age of 16, I have worked all manner of jobs. I worked a popcorn stand in my local kind of shopping centre, shopping mall, and I was serving slush puppies and popcorn and all manner of things like that. And I think from the second I could get a job, I was really like, right, because I wanted to spend money on clothes and things. So I worked there. I also worked in an Italian restaurant, which I still go to now. I absolutely loved working there. I loved being able to talk to lots of people. And then after that, I started working in retail, which kind of carried on pretty much to the point where I went full-time in my blog. At school, I knew I really wanted to go into something fashion-based, but it was really scary when applying for university because it was so broad. And when you say fashion, I think the only careers that I instantly thought of were like design or journalism or styling. It felt very much a sparse zone everywhere else, which obviously isn't true, but I think when you're 16, well, perhaps not now because of social media, but at the time, there didn't seem to have loads more options, and I didn't really know how to get into any of them. And I think when applying for university in the UK, you go through a system called UCAS, and you look at all of the courses available to you, and they can be everything from foundation art courses to English to history. And I was very much split between going on to do an English degree or an art foundation, and I was really worried, and in the end, despite being more of a photography and creative based person, I did go for the English degree because I love writing, but it was very much like the sensible and safe choice, which looking back now, I don't regret, but it probably wasn't the right thing for me. When I went up to Liverpool, the first thing I did on the weekend I went up to move in was actually applied for retail jobs, which actually looking back seems like a real nerdy thing to do because I was like, right, Freshers Week, get my CV out, instead of being like, whoa, party, and I was like, no, we're gonna go straight in for jobs, and I applied for a job at Whistles. I was really lucky, I got the job. At this point I'd worked in Topshop near where I lived. I'd kind of, you know, been doing that from the word go, and I do think that getting as much experience in terms of things like that is really important, especially if you want to kind of get a foot in. I found it really difficult initially getting work because a lot of places, especially like places like Topshop, were like, oh, we want people with experience, and it's like, well, how can I get experience if no one's going to give me a job? Which is where my blog came in really handy because it was a really great way of kind of showing initiative before I'd even been able to get onto the kind of retail ladder, if that makes sense. But when I was in Liverpool, I was working at Whistles at the time and I was studying, and I found that I really didn't like my course. So I dropped out of university and I moved back home to London. At the time, I'd been writing my blog for, I don't know, probably about 2 years at the time. I started it when I was in sixth form, and it was very much a constant thing. And I was just writing it, and I won at the time when I was at university the Cosmo Blog Award for Best New Fashion Blog, and that was really surreal for me, and that was a real kind of light bulb moment because I didn't realise that anyone was actually reading my blog apart from my mum and dad and anyone that would read it on Facebook when I was sharing every post and being quite in your face about it. That was a real kind of like, oh, this is a thing, people are reading this without me telling them about it, this is really cool. So I moved back to London, and for a few months I felt really lost, and luckily my transfer from Whistles in Liverpool transferred me down to the London store, which is in Westbourne Grove, which isn't there anymore. It's really weird now because I know lots of bloggers live around there, but at the time that was just where I was working every single day, and I saw these really glamorous people shopping, and it was very much a little window into this completely other world, a new world, and I was working there pretty much every day. And then fast forward a couple of months, I started applying for more internships, which is where another kind of weave comes in. It's so hard to like weave in 3 different elements because I feel like in terms of career I've had interning, the blog, and then university, and they've all kind of been parallel for a really long time. My first internship, rewinding back to year 10 at school, which was when I was 14, was at the NME magazine. I think everyone kind of knows what that is, but it's the New Musical Express, and it is a weekly, I don't know if it's weekly now, but it used to be a weekly magazine, came out every Wednesday, and it's everything music based, and it's been going for years and years. Now it's a free supplement that is handed out, so across like Top Man stores, I think, by tube stations. So it's really changed its kind of circulation from the years that I was working there till now. But I absolutely loved it, and it was such a valuable time for me to get experience in writing. And I remember I got that internship from a gig. I was at a gig with my dad, and he was like talking to someone he was sitting with, and she was a journalist at the magazine, and he kind of said, oh, my daughter's looking for work experience, and that was my first in, and that was invaluable for me. I kept going back every half term, every school holiday. I was back in, I was emailing, I was like, do you have any free space? And I was a bit of a pest really, but that was really useful for me because it meant I really got experience in everything like that involved internships, so whether that's sorting post, running really basic errands, making a great cup of tea. One of the things you did when you did this work experience was you had to write a review and of like a single, and then you got to sit down with the journalist and they'd go through it with you, and they'd say, this is good, this is what you need to be doing. And one journalist said you should really start a blog, and I was doing one at the time, but he said that would really help improve your tone of voice. And that for me was really valuable because it really helped me hone in on what I wanted to do and writing. And then fast forward to when I'd left university, I wanted to go back into interning. I'd applied to go to London College of Fashion, which I didn't get into, and that was probably one of the most crushing things ever because I did very much think, I've not got in here, what now? And I know loads of bloggers have gone there, been really successful. I just didn't get in, and I kind of fell at the first hurdle. I thought, I'm never gonna succeed. And after that, I just started applying for more internships. So at that point, I remember the start of, must have been 2014, I applied for an internship at Company magazine where I started. And I did a month there, which was in their fashion cupboard. It was very useful, very educational, but working in a fashion cupboard I found really difficult, and it's not glamorous, it's not as glamorous as it seemed, but it was a great experience. But I was very much sorting out samples, returning them, sorting out samples and returning them, and you are very much in there for a month, which is great. It was definitely like an insight in, and then I went on to do work experience at Look magazine, and then Notebook magazine, which is part of the Sunday Mirror, and it's a supplement, and that was probably the place I got the most experience and really felt I got to be quite hands-on with the job. And I was there for a few months. I was there every day. I worked in retail at the weekend, so I pretty much had no extra time, but I was still blogging in the evenings. In terms of getting internships, my piece of advice would probably be to just make sure you're emailing all of the time. Even with getting jobs in retail, I remember when I applied for my job at Topshop, it was just about handing in your CV at the right time, and at the time I'd hand it in once and then I'd never hear back, and I'd be like, well, I'm not going to get a job in there. But I learned that it was very much like when they need a job, they'll check and they'll see who's on top of the pile kind of thing. So I kind of kept doing that, and that's how I did it. It takes a lot of perseverance, and especially with internships it was emailing so frequently because the amount and volume of emails people get is so high. So I keep emailing, writing great cover letters, showing that I was interested. And again, this is where my blog came in really handy because it showed that I did have an interest outside of the industry that I was incentivized to do on my own accord, and I wasn't kind of doing it because I had to. And I do think that if you are trying to get in terms of internships or anything like that, just starting because you want to start and not because you have any like ulterior motive is so important. So after 3 months of interning at Notebook magazine, I kind of realised that it's really difficult sometimes interning because you get your lunch paid for and your travel paid for, But aside from that, I wasn't really earning anything, and I was also juggling working in retail, and I had so little time for anything. I was working on the weekends to make ends meet so I could do intern, but I just didn't really have any other space. So after that, I kind of decided that I wanted to start freelancing. And this was quite difficult because I'd never done anything like this before, but fortunately a couple of things popped up, which were just word of mouth. And one of them was doing some social media for like an agency who looked after a few brands in the UK who were gifting bloggers, running their own social media channels, and that was the first thing I did. And I did this 1 or 2 days a week. I could either do it from their office in London or at home, and this worked really nicely for me. It was a bit of income, meant I could still work in retail, and it meant that I had a couple of extra days just to myself to write the blog, which was really great. I was probably doing this for about a year, and I started doing it for another PR company. Very, very low key. I wouldn't say I had any PR experience really at all. I just knew how to do social media, so I was doing that for them. And then in terms of going full time on my blog, it was very much a matter of just dropping a day where I could and taking on another day of blogging. It was a very organic, natural process. It was quite difficult. I mean, I never had to make the jump that a lot of people do when they go from a full-time secure job into blogging, because that takes a lot of courage. But for me, I was very fortunate in the sense that I could be like, okay, I'm going to drop all my freelance stuff, work on my blog during the week, and then work in retail at the weekend. And then gradually I kind of got to a point where I was earning enough from my blog that I thought, actually I'm earning a little bit more than I do from working in a shop. So I could balance it out. And that was very much how I went full-time. It was very gradual. And I definitely think that when I started getting management or an agent was really important for me, because I am not business minded in any way. I'm really not savvy. I don't really know. I struggle with knowing my value, and I think a lot of people do when you start out. But I think going in and having someone say this is what you should be charging was really, really valuable. And perhaps there's another video in that about knowing your value and rates and things, because that was a minefield for me, and I remember asking a few people, like, what do you charge for this? I don't know. But it was all experience, and kind of since then, that's where it kind of leads us up to the present day, because I have been doing it now for 8 years in total. So I think the last 4 have been primarily just full-time on the blog. Yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind. I feel like I've covered a lot of ground in this video. I feel like I've waffled for a long time. I wanted to do a little video talking through my career history and how I kind of got to where I am, and just the process I went through, and even back down to university, because I've had a lot of little hiccups along the way, and I didn't, like, nothing's been particularly, nothing's not been easy. I've been very fortunate, but it's not been like all straightforward. Like, I didn't get into every uni I wanted to go to, I didn't succeed at every opportunity, and I think that was really important, because it's having that kind of get-go to be like, no, we're going to carry on. And I think that's so important, and that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I hope this video can give, is that if, you know, you didn't get into the college or university you wanted to go to, or if you didn't get the grades for something, there is still so many opportunities and windows out there, and everyone goes through them, and it's so normal. And I feel very fortunate I get to do this now full time, but for a long, I mean, it wasn't a viable career option when I started school, so looking back now, I could have never predicted this would happen. I think there's probably still more questions I've not tapped on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to link a blog post I'm going to write around the same topic below, so hopefully if there's anything I've not covered here, I'll cover it there, and vice versa. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more things like this, like careers, or I'm going to do a post about friendships, but I know that's totally like unrelated, but more careers, work, tips for university, things like that, please let me know. I mean, I'm not an expert with uni, definitely not. 3 months experience is not an expert make, but let me know, because I have enjoyed this video. I didn't realise I had this much talk in me, like non-stop. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe and all the rest of it, and I will see you next week. Bye!